Today we're going to be covering the last couple of pages from chapter 18, reduction of adverb clauses to modifying adverbial phrases. And then we're going to start on chapter 19, which is the connectives that express cause and effect, contrast, and condition. Just to reiterate, remember that when we reduce an adverb clause to an adverbial phrase, we have to look at two things first. First, we have to make sure that the subject in the adverb clause and the subject in the main clause or independent clause have to be the same. Another thing that we have to do is when we, if both subjects are the same, then we can change it to an adverbial phrase, but we must omit the subject. And if there is a verb be, drop the verb be. If there is no verb be, change the main verb to its ing form. So if you please, we'll open your books to page 401. And here we're going to start with on exercise 18. Okay? And this is a summarization, okay? An exercise 18, the reading and grammar, okay? This is good, especially for your writing exam date, okay? In this, sometimes you know that when you do your essays, you're going to start with your introductory paragraph, where you have your hook and your thesis statement. Then you do body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, and the last paragraph is going to be your conclusion, which is a summary of everything that you've written. So this is a good example here, okay, that you can use. So if we go to exercise 18, reading and grammar. And here, modifying adverbial phrases are useful when summarizing information. First, read the passage about the invention of the telephone. It has no modifying adverbial phrases. Then read the summary on the next page and underline the modifying adverbial phrases. How do these phrases allow the ideas to be expressed more briefly yet still clearly? So that's what you're wanting to do in your conclusion paragraph of your essay. You might want to consider using adverbial phrases instead of adverb clauses, and you're going to be modifying them so that they can give the idea more briefly, but yet it's still the same information, okay? So the first telephone. Alexander Graham Bell, a teacher of the deaf in Boston, invented the first telephone. One day in 1875, while he was running a test on his latest attempt to create a machine that could carry voices, he accidentally spilled acid on his coat. Naturally, he called for his assistant, Thomas A. Watson, who was in another room. Bell said, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want you." When he heard words coming from the machine, Watson immediately realized that their experiments had at last been successful. He rushed excitedly into the other room and to tell Bell that he had heard his words over the machine. After he successfully tested the new machine again and again, Bell confidently announced his invention to the world. For the most part, scientists appreciated his accomplishment, but the general public did not understand the revolutionary nature of Bell's invention. Most people believed the telephone was a toy with little practical application, and they paid little attention to Bell's announcement. Now think about that. We've come full circle with that. Most people at that time thought, oh, this is just a toy. You know, this is not going to be useful. But now look at us. We can't be without our phones. Whether it's in your pocket, in your purse, or on your person, on your watch, or even if you have one at home, we can't be without them. So here we have two long paragraphs. Now if you'll turn to page 402, the summary. And this is summarizing the same ideas, but, briefly, okay? A small accident helped Alexander Graham Bell with his invention of the telephone. While running a test to create a machine for voices, Bell spilled acid on his coat. He called to Mr. Watson, his assistant, who was in a different room. Watson heard Bell's words coming out of their new machine. Upon realizing what had happened, Watson and Bell knew that the invention was successful. Bell told the world about his discovery after testing the machine multiple times. Scientists understood the value of his work, but the general public, believing the phone was more of a toy, paid little attention to his announcement. So see, that's an excellent summarization of the 2 paragraphs that I just read earlier. So summary is important, ladies and gentlemen. Keep in mind that if you use the adverbial phrases, you're able to give the same information. However, it's brief. It's not as condensed as the regular information. Okay? All right. We're now doing exercise 19, so let's go on to page 405. This is the introduction to connectives that express cause and effect, contrast and condition on page 405, chart 19-1. Connectives can express cause and effect, contrast and condition. They can be adverb clause words, transition, conjunctions, or prepositions. In chapter 17, you studied adverb clause words that express these ideas. In this chapter, you will also look at transitions, conjunctions, and prepositions. So look at letters A and B. And here, these are connectives that use adverb clause words to introduce an adverb clause. Because Julian felt sick, he left work early. Even though Julian is afraid of doctors, he decided to make an appointment. You see, because and even though introduce adverb clauses. You notice the comma after each adverb clause followed by the main clause. The connectives in A and B are adverb clause words. Look at C and D. Julian had a rash and fever, period, capital C. Consequently, the doctor ran tests, period. And the doctor ran tests, period, capital H. However, she found nothing serious. The connectives in C and D are transitions. And remember, with transitions, normally we use a period before the transition and capitalize the transition, and then a comma after the transition to separate it from the rest of the sentence. You may use a semicolon instead of a period before the transition, and if you use a semicolon, remember, don't capitalize the transition word. So the choice is up to you. However, the more commonly used punctuation mark here would be the period. Look at letters E and F. Julian wasn't seriously ill, but his doctor told him to get rest anyway. And Julian wasn't so well, so his doctor told him to rest. The conjunctions or the connectives in E and F are conjunctions. But and so are from a list of conjunctions. Letters G and H. Due to, and to is a preposition. Due to an illness, Julian missed several days of work, period. He stayed home from work because of his illness. Of is a preposition. So the connectives in G and H are prepositions, due to and because of. So let's look at the list here that follows. Adverb clause words that give us cause and effect. Okay? These words are adverb clause words, and they give us, these words here will give us, they introduce an adverb clause and give us a cause and effect. Okay? Because, since, now that, and so, or so that. You might say, because Tony is older than his brother Sam, he will graduate from high school earlier. Or, since Tony is older than his brother Sam, he will graduate from high school earlier. Okay? Or, now that Sam has graduated, he will attend a university. Okay? Contrast. Even though, although, and though. Now remember, even though, although, and though give you the unexpected result. Okay? And while gives you direct contrast. Okay? You might say, Tony is tall while his brother Sam is short. Okay? Or even though I wore a sweater, I was still cold. Although I wore a sweater, I was still cold. Though I wore a sweater, I was still cold. See? And then adverb clause words that give us condition. If, unless, only if, even if, whether or not, and in case. Okay? So remember these conditions. Neither this condition or that condition matters, only this. Okay? So for example, the picnic will be canceled only if it rains. Or even if the weather is windy, we will still have the picnic. Or we will go on a picnic whether or not it is hot. Okay? Now, transition words that give us cause and effect, therefore and consequently. And transition words that give us contrast, however, nevertheless, nonetheless, and on the other hand. Now this is important because we use on, not in the other hand. So when you're making a contrast, you know, for example, you might say, Tony is studious, period. And then you might say, on the other hand, comma, his brother Sam is not. Okay? So you're making direct contrast with using a transition. Okay? So here, remember, don't say in the other hand because that would be a preposition of place. You would not say, my red pen is in the other hand. Okay? That's because you're not showing contrast. You're using it as a preposition of place. And then otherwise. Okay? Otherwise will give you, it's a transition that gives you condition. Okay? So let's look at conjunctions that give us cause and effect. So will give us cause and effect. Okay? I was tired last night, so I went to bed early. See? The cause, I was tired. The effect, I went to bed early. Okay? Conjunctions that give us contrast, but anyway, yet still. Okay? You might say, I studied very hard for the exam, yet I still didn't get the grade I wanted. Okay, that gives you contrast. Okay? And then a conjunction that gives us condition or else. Okay? We will go to the movie or to the park. Okay? After we finish class. Okay? Prepositions. These words, because of and due to, they show us cause and effect. Okay? So you might say, we have to study from home because of the coronavirus. Okay? Or we have to study online classes because of the pandemic that is happening right now. Due to and because of, same thing. Okay? Prepositions that give us contrast, despite, in spite of. Okay, you say, I decided to wash my car despite the dark clouds in the sky. Or I decided to wash my car in spite of the dark clouds in the sky. Meaning, dark clouds in my brain. There are no prepositions that show us conditions. Okay? So if we look at exercise 2, reading here, it says, read the passage and underline the connecting words from chart 19-1. A distracted driver. Even though Richard was driving the speed limit, he had an accident. The weather was clear. Nevertheless, he glanced briefly at a text message. He's multitasking. He took his eyes off the road just long enough to lose control and drive over the edge of the road. Fortunately, his car landed upright. Although he wasn't seriously hurt, he was quite shaken up. This is Richard's second accident this year, so he knows his insurance rates will go up. Now that he's had 2 accidents, he's upset with himself. However, he knows his wife will be even more upset. He's not looking forward to telling her. So, look for words from the list, the adverb clause words, transitions, conjunctions, and prepositions that you will find in this reading. Okay? Underline them, and then I'll give you a minute so we can check together. Okay, let's look at a distracted driver. The first one, even though. This here shows us one of the words, even though, is in the list that shows us contrast. Okay? Even though Richard was driving the speed limit, he had an accident, the weather was clear. Nevertheless, he glanced briefly at a text message. The second one is nevertheless. Okay? Nevertheless is a transition that shows us contrast also. He took his eyes off the road just long enough to lose control and drive over the edge of the road. Fortunately, his car landed upright. Although he wasn't seriously hurt, he was quite shaken up. Another word here is although. Although is an adverb clause word that gives us contrast. This is Richard's second accident this year, so he knows his insurance rates will go up. So is a conjunction that shows us cause and effect. Now that he's had 2 accidents, he's upset with himself. Nothing there. However, he knows his wife will be even more upset. However is a transition word. Okay? And that shows us contrast also. Oh, I also missed over here. Now that. Okay? And now that can also be classified as as a cause and effect adverb clause word. Okay? So now that, and then however is a transition that gives us also, that shows us a contrast. Okay? So the words here are even though, nevertheless, although, so, now that, however. So we have 6 words from the list that show us either cause and effect or contrast. Let's go to the next page, page 406. On exercise 3, ladies and gentlemen, here, this is a warm-up. And it says, which sentences express the same meaning as the situation and result? Here's the situation. Monday was a holiday. Here's the result. All schools were closed. Okay? So we have to find the sentences that give us the same meaning as this situation, Monday was a holiday, and this result, all schools were closed. Okay? So number 1, all schools were closed on Monday because it was a holiday. Does that give us the same meaning as the situation and the result? Yes. So number 1, circle it. Number 2, because of the holiday, all schools were closed on Monday. Does that give us the same meaning? Yes. Circle number 2. Number 3, due to the holiday, all schools were closed on Monday. Does that give us the same meaning of the situation and result? Yes. Circle number 3, because of due to. Number 4, due to the fact that it was a holiday, all schools were closed on Monday. Does that give us the same meaning as the situation and result? Yes. Circle it. Number 5. Because all schools were closed on Monday, it was a holiday. No. That doesn't give us the same meaning as the situation that Monday was a holiday and that schools were closed. Okay? So, look at chart 19-2. If you notice here, ladies and gentlemen, because in A, because the weather was cold, we stayed home. Because introduces an adverb clause, it is followed by a subject and a verb. So here, because the weather, that's your subject, the verb was cold, comma, we stayed home. This introduces an adverb clause, but remember, because is followed by a subject and a verb. Okay? Now, look at B and C. Because of the cold weather, we stayed home. Due to the cold weather, we stayed home. Because and due to are phrasal prepositions that are followed by a noun object as in B and C. See, because of the cold weather and due to the cold weather. So here, it's a noun object. It's not like because, where because is followed by a subject and a verb. No, because is followed by subject and verb, but because of and due to, a noun object. Okay? Look at D. Due to the fact that the weather was cold, we stayed home. Sometimes, usually in more formal writing, due to is followed by a noun clause introduced by the fact that. So this is more formal. Due, instead of saying due to the cold weather, you say no, due to the fact that the weather was cold, comma, we stayed home. Okay? So this is more formal. Letter E. We stayed home because of the cold weather. We stayed home due to the cold weather. We stayed home due to the fact that the weather was cold. Like adverb clauses, these phrases can also follow the main clause. But if they follow the main clause, there is no punctuation before the adverb clause. Okay? So if we look at exercise 4, accomplishments. Here the instructions say identify the cause and effect in each pair of sentences. Write C for cause and E for effect. Then combine the sentences with because. So your accomplishments. Look at number 1. John quit smoking. John has breathing problems. So you say, because John has breathing problems, comma, he quit smoking. This is a cause and effect. This is the cause. Okay? This is the effect. Because John has breathing problems, that's the cause. So what's the effect? He quit smoking. Look at number 2. And remember, it's important to find the right cause. Okay? Martina feels homesick. Martina moved to a new town. So ask yourself, which one is the cause and what's the effect? So here, Martina moved to a new town. That's the cause. Okay, put a C. What's the effect? Now that she moved to a new town, she feels homesick. That's the effect. Okay? So you can say, Martina feels homesick because she moved to a new town. Or, because Martina moved to a new town, comma, she feels homesick. Same thing. Look at number 3. Vivian worked very hard. Vivian won a scholarship. What's the cause? What's the effect? So in this one, the cause is Vivian worked very hard. The effect, Vivian won a scholarship. So you'll say, because Vivian worked very hard, comma, she won a scholarship. Again, because Vivian worked very hard, comma, she won a scholarship. Do number 4 and 5, and we'll check in a minute. All right. Victor has lost weight. Victor reduced his sugar intake. The cause here is Victor reduced his sugar intake. What's the effect? He has lost weight. So you say, because Victor reduced his sugar intake, comma, he has lost weight. Or, Victor has lost weight because he reduced his sugar intake. No comma. Number 5. Sane increased her department's profits. Sane was promoted to manager. So you start with, okay, my cause. Sane increased her department's profits. The effect, she was promoted to manager. So you say, because Sane increased her department's profits, comma, she was promoted to manager. Again, because Sane increased her department's profits, comma, she was promoted to manager. All right. Let's look at exercise 5. Choose all the correct sentences. We have number 1 and then number 2 on page 407. Read those, ladies and gentlemen, and circle the answers that you think are correct. Okay. So number 1, letter A. My cell phone doesn't work because the battery is dead. Is that correct? It is. So circle letter A. Look at B. Because my cell phone doesn't work, the battery is dead. Is that correct? No. Letter C. Because the battery is dead, my cell phone doesn't work. Is that correct? Yes. Letter D. The battery is dead because my cell phone doesn't work. Is that correct? No. So the only correct ones are A and C, because you have to identify the correct cause followed by the effect. Okay? Look at number 2 on page 407. Because Pat doesn't want to return to the Yukon to live, the winters are too severe. Is that correct? No. Number 2. Pat doesn't want to return to the Yukon to live because the winters are too severe. That is correct. That means that the winters up in Alaska are very harsh, very cold. So she doesn't want to go back there. Letter C. Because the winters are too severe, Pat doesn't want to return to the Yukon to live. Okay? That is also correct. Letter D. The winters are too severe because Pat doesn't want to return to the Yukon to live. This is not correct. So, in this particular, B and C are correct because it identified the correct cause, followed by the effect. Okay? Now, look at exercise 6. On exercise 6, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at complete the sentences with because. Remember, because is followed by a subject and a noun. A subject and a verb, I'm sorry. A subject and a verb. And because of and due to are followed by a noun object, not a subject and a verb. Okay? So look at number 1. Problems. We postpone our trip blank the bad driving conditions. Okay? So here, you look at the bad driving conditions. This is a noun object, the bad driving conditions. It's not a subject and verb. So you say because of or due to. Now go ahead and do number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, please. We'll check in a minute. Okay, let's look at number 2. Sue's eyes were red, blank. She had been swimming in a chlorinated pool. She, and then had been. Past perfect. Subject, verb. So you say because. Number 3. We can't visit the museum tomorrow, blank. It isn't open. So it is a subject, isn't is a verb be. So because it isn't open. Number 4. Blank heavy fog at the airport. Our plane was delayed for several hours. Because of or due to heavy fog at the airport. Here heavy fog is a noun object. Because of, due to heavy fog at the airport, our plane was delayed for several hours. Number 5. Blank, the elevator was broken. We had to walk up 6 flights of stairs. Okay, subject, the elevator, and then was is your verb be. So here, because the elevator was broken, that's expected, we had to walk up 6 flights of stairs. Number 6. Jim had to stop jogging, blank, his sprained ankle. So here, his sprained ankle is a noun object. So you say Jim had to stop jogging because of or due to his sprained ankle. Now look at exercise 7. In exercise 7 it says complete the sentences with the ideas in parentheses. So you're going to take the idea from here and change it into a noun object. Okay? Due to, and then you say the traffic was heavy. So you say, okay, due to heavy traffic, alternate routes are advised into the city. Okay? Now look at number 2. Students have the flu. So we're going to take the noun object and use it here from these words. Many schools in the district have high absentee rates because of the flu. So you're going to hear the noun object because of, so you noun object, the flu. Okay? Number 3. There are loud noises at the beach. Police are investigating reports of illegal fireworks because of loud noises at the beach. So you say, loud noises at the beach. I said beach, okay? Number 4. Circumstances are beyond their control. Due to blank, all City Hall offices are closed today. So here, take a noun object from these words and put it here. So you're going to say, due to circumstances beyond their control. No R. Circumstances beyond their control, all City Hall offices are closed today. And number 5, the donors are generous. So take a noun object. Due to blank, the food banks have enough food for the holidays. Due to generous donors. Generous donors, the food banks have enough food for the holidays. All right. Let's look at exercise 8. On exercise 8, we have check the sentences that logically complete the idea of in the given sentence. So here's the idea. Nadia likes fresh vegetables. We have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So put a check mark on the sentences that give us the same idea that Nadia likes fresh vegetables. Okay, let's start with number 1. So we know that Nadia likes fresh vegetables. Therefore, she has a vegetable garden in her yard. Yes, check mark here. Number 2, Nadia likes fresh vegetables. As a result, she doesn't grow her own vegetables. No. Number 3, Nadia likes fresh vegetables. Therefore, she buys canned vegetables at the store. Canned is not fresh, so no. Number 4, Nadia likes fresh vegetables. As a result, she buys produce from local farmers. Yes. Number 5, Nadia likes fresh vegetables. She eats a lot of frozen vegetables, therefore. Frozen vegetables are not fresh. Number 6, Nadia likes fresh vegetables. Consequently, she eats produce from her garden. Yes. So here, the sentences that logically complete the idea that Nadia likes fresh vegetables are number 1, number 4, and number 6. This was an introduction to chart 19-3. Cause and effect using therefore, consequently, and so. And notice the patterns here, especially in punctuation, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? So, therefore and consequently are transitions. So is a conjunction. So we're going to look at these examples. Study the punctuation patterns, okay? Example A. Al failed the test because he didn't study. Or letter B. Al didn't study, period, capital T. Therefore, comma, he failed the test, period. C. Al didn't study, period, capital C. Consequently, comma, he failed the test. So therefore and consequently are transition words. Notice the period before, notice the comma afterwards. Examples A, B, and C have the same meaning. Therefore and consequently mean as a result. In grammar, they are called transitions or conjunctive adverbs. Transitions connect the ideas between two sentences. They are used most commonly in formal written English and rarely in spoken English. But use them anyway because you'll impress people with your ability to use formal English. I always encourage students to use formal English whenever possible. So use those transition words when you're speaking, especially when you're looking at it, making a cause and effect statement. Letter D. Al didn't study, period. Capital T. Therefore, comma, he failed the test. E. Al didn't study, period. He, comma, therefore, comma, failed the test. And F. Al didn't study, period. He failed the test, comma, therefore. Transition occurs in the second of two related sentences. Notice the patterns and punctuation in the examples. A period, not a comma, is used at the end of the first sentence. The transition has several positions in the second sentence. It is separated from the rest of the sentence by commas. So, in A, Al didn't study, period, therefore, comma, he failed the test. This is it. Therefore, subject he, verb, failed, and then the rest of the sentence, the text. See here, therefore, comma, he, subject, failed is the verb, and then the rest of the sentence, the text. In E, Al didn't study, period. He, comma, therefore, comma, failed the test. So here we have he, transition, therefore, verb, failed, and then the rest of the sentence, the test. And letter F, he failed the test, comma, therefore. Subject and verb, he failed the test, rest of sentence, therefore. There it is, subject, verb, rest of sentence, comma, therefore. So you can use the transition at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of the sentence. But remember, you use commas to separate the transition from the rest of the sentences. Okay? What's more common? Letter D. Look at letter G. Al didn't study, comma, so he failed the test. In G, so is used as a conjunction between two independent clauses. It has the same meaning as therefore. So is common in both formal written and spoken English. A comma usually precedes so when it connects two sentences, as in G. So here, Al didn't study, comma, not a period, not a semicolon. So he failed the test. Okay? Now, semicolon is also possible in this situation. Al didn't study, semicolon, therefore, comma, he failed the test. And it says, see footnote to chart 19-1. That's for tomorrow's lesson. Okay? So we look at exercise 9. Rewrite the sentence with the given words. Punctuate carefully. The runner can compete in races because he wears a special blade attached to his knee. Okay? Now, you're going to use two transition words and one conjunction to rewrite this sentence. Here, here, and here. You notice here's the runner. Look at the special blade attached to his knee, right here. So in the first one, the runner wears a special blade attached to his knee, period. Therefore, comma, he can compete in races. And the same for number 2. The runner wears a special blade attached to his knee, period. Capital C. Consequently, he can compete in races, period. And number 3. The runner wears a special blade attached to his knee, comma, so he can compete in races. Again, the runner wears a special blade attached to his knee, comma, so he can compete in races. So in number 1 and number 2, you're using a period before the second sentence begins with a transition. Again, the runner wears a special blade attached to his knee, period. Therefore, capital T, comma, he can compete in races. Number 2, the runner wears a special blade attached to his knee, period. Capital C, consequently, comma, he can compete in races. And the runner wears a special blade attached to his knee, period. I'm sorry, comma, not a period, comma, so he can compete in races. The comma comes before the conjunction so. Okay. All right. Almost done for today. If we look at exercise 10, punctuate the sentences. Add capital letters as necessary. Note, 2 sentences need no changes. Now, number 1 and 2 are adverb clauses. 3 and 4, prepositional phrases. 5 and 6 are using transitions. And number 7, conjunctions. So you're going to use different punctuation marks. And remember, 2 of these sentences do not need any changes. No punctuation, no capital letters. If you use a period, you have to capitalize. I'll give you a couple of minutes to look over these. Add punctuation marks where necessary and capitalize where necessary. If there is no change, just say NC or put NC. Okay? After the sentence, wherever it is, 2 of those sentences. Okay, let's look at number 1. This is an adverb clause. Because it was cold, comma, she wore a coat. The adverb clause comes first, so we use a comma to separate it from the main clause. Number 2 is also an adverb clause. She wore a coat because it was cold. No change, because the adverb clause comes after the main clause. Prepositional phrase. Because of the cold weather, she wore a coat. So you say, because of the cold weather, comma, she wore a coat. Because the prepositional phrase comes before the main clause. Number 4, she wore a coat because of the cold weather. The main clause is first, therefore no commas necessary. So number 4, no change. Number 5, The weather was cold, therefore she wore a coat. So you say the weather was cold, period. Capital T. Therefore, comma, she wore a coat. And number 6, the weather was cold, she wore a coat, therefore. So you say the weather was cold, period. Capital S. She wore a coat, comma, therefore. And number 7, the weather was cold, comma, so she wore a coat. This is a conjunction. So we use a comma before so. Okay? Exercise 11. Punctuate the sentences. Add capital letters as necessary. So here, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about a storm. Look at the ice forming on the branches of the tree. So let's do the first one together. Freezing rain fell in the city. It was unsafe to walk outside because of slippery streets and falling branches. So obviously we need punctuation marks. So you're going to say, freezing rain fell in the city, period. Capital I. It was unsafe to walk outside because of slippery streets and falling branches. Let's do another one together. Due to improvements in weather forecasting, people knew about the storm well in advance. So here we need to use some punctuation marks. Here's your prepositional phrase. Due to improvements in weather forecasting, comma, people knew about the storm well in advance. Go ahead and do number 3 and 4. We'll check in a minute. Okay, number 3. The storm damaged the power lines. Consequently, the town was without electricity. So here's a transition. So you're going to say the storm damaged the power lines, period. Capital C. Consequently, comma, the town was without electricity. Again, the storm damaged the power lines, period. Consequently, capital C, comma, the town was without electricity. Number 4. Due to the snowstorm, only 2 students came to class. The teacher therefore canceled the class. So here's a prepositional phrase. So here you're going to say, due to the snowstorm, comma, only 2 students came to class, period. Capital T, the teacher, comma, therefore, comma, canceled the class. Again, due to the snowstorm, only 2 students came to class, period. Capital T, the teacher, comma, therefore, comma, canceled the class, period. Okay? And finally, exercise 12. Check the sentences that have the correct punctuation. Now, this is an introduction for tomorrow's chart. We're going to start with chart 19.4. If you get a chance, look over it, okay? Look over it and review it so that you can see the punctuation summary, okay, of using the patterns in not only adjective clauses but also prepositional phrases and other types of sentences. But let's do exercise 12 together. Check the sentences that have the correct punctuation. Look at number 1. Some doctors recommend yoga for their patients, period, because it can lower stress. No, it should not have a period. It should not be a capital letter. No punctuation is necessary because the adverb clause comes after the main clause. No punctuation. Number 2, because yoga can lower stress, some doctors recommend it for their students. It's not correct because we need a comma right here after stress, because yoga can lower stress, comma. Some doctors recommend it for their students or for their patients and students too, right? You're under a lot of stress. Number 3, yoga can lower stress, period. Some doctors, comma, therefore, comma, recommend it for their patients. Yes, that is correct. Here you have subject, comma, transition, comma, verb, comma, rest of sentence. Number 4, yoga can lower stress, comma, so some doctors recommend it for their patients. We're using a transition, a conjunction, so we use a comma right here. Okay, so that is correct. So number 3 and 4 are correct. 1 and 2 are not correct. Now, remember tomorrow, we're going to do the optional lessons. These are optional pages, but I encourage you to log on and review those because I'm going to do pages 410 through 415. Realizing that next week we only have 4 more days and we have to finish this chapter 19 and chapter 20 before the final exam, which is next Friday. Okay, so make sure that you are on it tomorrow or during the weekend, since we can't go out anywhere. Okay, so the final exam is going to be on the 17th. So please make sure that you're ready for it. Again, study the charts, especially the punctuation patterns, the parallel structure patterns, okay, from charts, from chapters 16, 17, the reducing adverb clauses, okay, and the connectives. And next week we're going to start with the conditional sentences, okay. I'm thinking that maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday we'll do Blackboard Ultra or Blackboard Collaborate Ultra and do like 4 pages, and then I'll record the rest of the pages for that day. So on Monday, for example, let's say we do 4 pages on Blackboard Online, pages 416, 17, 18, 19, and then for the rest of the recording for that day, you'll have pages 420 to 425, like that, okay? Just so that we are able to finish the material that's coming up, okay? Since we are running out of time, it is important that we make use of all the time that we have available to us. Okay, I will see you in tomorrow's lesson. Have a good day and take care. Bye-bye.